This is TheAngryHoneyBadger here, and in today's video we'll be taking a look at Support Trundle. And as long as Riot doesn't change Trundle, this is my new favorite thing. We'll start off by taking a look at his abilities, what order we'll max them out in, then we'll go over his runes and his masteries, followed by counters, both good and bad, and team synergies. Finally, we'll take a look at the items you'll want to consider purchasing while playing Trundle, and his pros and his cons. Be sure to like and subscribe if you find this video helpful, but for now let's take a look at Trundle, the Troll King.
Go around the badger.
As for Trundle's abilities, let's start off with this passive. This is called King's Tribute. When an enemy unit dies near Trundle, he heals for a % of its maximum health. As for Trundle's Q ability, this is Chomp. We'll be putting a point into this at level 2 and maxing this out second. Trundle bites his opponent, dealing damage, briefly slowing them and sapping some of their attack damage. As for Trundle's W, this is his Frozen Domain. We're going to put a point into this at level 3 and typically max this out last. Trundle turns a target location into his domain, gaining attack speed, movement speed, and increased healing from all sources while inside of the area. And his E ability is his Pillar of Ice. You're going to put a point into this at level 1 and we're going to max this out first. Trundle creates a Pillar of Ice at a target location, becoming impassable terrain and slowing all nearby enemy units. And finally, we have Trundle's ultimate. This is Subjugate. Trundle immediately steals a % of his target's health, armor, and magic resist. Over the next 4 seconds, the amount of health, armor, and magic resist stolen is doubled. As for his rune page, I personally like to take Armor Marks, Armor Seals, Magic Resist Glyphs, and Movement Speed Quintessences. And for his masteries, you want to put 16 in the defensive tree and 14 in utility. Here's the page I recommend using. As for champions that can counter Trundle, let's start out with Sona. Sona, along with other supports I'll mention, have range, and that is Trundle's weakness as a support. He can't really trade or harass them. Sona has an all-around kit that makes her a great counter to Trundle in the bot lane. Next is Nami. A well-placed bubble can cut off a Trundle engagement, and indeed her range will outpoke Trundle while in lane. Her heal is also an added bonus that keeps her ADC or herself up and longer in lane. Finally, there's Soraka. Raka's silence and her poke are two very helpful tools against Trundle. Her ability to also heal up her ADC for large amounts makes it very difficult to force them out of lane at any point. As for matchups that favor Trundle, let's start out with Leona. Leona does have better lockdown, but to use it, she must engage against the Trundle lane. Trundle trades back more damage, and his pillar can help actually kite Leona from re-engaging. Next is Braum. His Q harass is a little annoying, but not much of a problem. Trundle will also be a big fan of stealing his stats with Subjugate once he's level 6. Force Braum away with your pillar and engage on the enemy ADC. Finally, there's Thresh. I think Thresh should win this lane every time, but every time I've played against it, it's been no problem. If he focuses the crowd control on Trundle, your ADC will be able to lay down plenty of damage. And if he doesn't focus Trundle, you'll be able to use your pillar to counter the CC, and then you can deal plenty of damage yourself. It all seems to honestly work out in the end for some reason. As for champions that synergize well with Trundle, those include Anivia, Lissandra, Jarvan, Vayne, and Corki. Jarvan and Anivia help cut off or trap engagements with added terrain. Trundle can also add his too. As for Vayne and Corki, they can take care of themselves while Trundle engages in these skirmishes in the bot lane. As for the items I like to take when I play Trundle in the bot lane as support at level 1, you're going to want to start off with a Targon's Brace and 4 health pots and your warding totem. Now, you won't need any mana pots because you're honestly not too hard on your mana, so don't worry about that. Also, you'll typically be sitting back in the lane for the first few levels. You're not super strong early in the game, but don't worry about that. As for our first trips back to base, we'll be picking up our Sightstone, and we're going to want to pick up some Boots of Mobility. We're going to be able to ward around the map. We can also go gank mid lane with our pillar, and then we will be building towards a face of the mountain. After we have our Sightstone, our Face of the Mountain, and our Boots fully completed, the next item I usually like to pick up is the Locket of the Iron Solari. It will give me a little bit of magic resist, and it will also give the aura to the team, which is good, and we can use the active to shield the team. Another very nice thing on engagements. Also, Face of the Mountain will also have its shield, so we can shield a lot of people while we're skirmishing. Now, one other item you could maybe get a little bit before if you really need to get the armor. At that point, I really start to like to get a Randuin's Omen. Those are kind of my next two items, just give or take. The Locket's helpful, and it's good stats all around just in general for the team, but if you need just a little bit of armor early, get that Warden's Mail part of the Omen first. And at this point, we do have 5 items, and the final item I like to personally pick up will be a Trinity Force. The Trinity Force is really helpful on Trundle. You can proc his Q a lot and use the Sheen proc quite a bit. Also, it helps you stay sticky onto targets that you want to slow with your Q ability too, because you get the movement speed from the Phage. Also, you become like a new carry for your team out of nowhere, because the Trinity Force is honestly a core great item for Trundle. It's a really good pickup, and at this point in the game, if it's going this late, you're already decently tanky with the other items. The Trinity Force will now give your team another carry potential throughout the game too, which is another added bonus. Moving on to his pros and cons, let's go over his pros. He is a tank buster with his ultimate. He has tons of sustain in lane with his passive. He does a significant amount of damage with his kit as the game progresses. He has a great engage and disengage with his pillar. And he's really good in long extended team fights because he's always getting health back when something dies. As for his cons, he's generally weak early. He's not the strongest if you're going to get into a really early fight in lane. Missing Pillar can really mess up an engagement because it is his one really big crowd control. Mediocre scaling is kind of what Trundle's always been about. It's not great, it's not terrible. It's usually made up for with items, so be just wary of that. And he has no real damage harass in lane. You just kind of have to hang back and pray your ADC is good at CSing. And as for my personal thoughts, I honestly love Trundle. I've actually always been a big fan of Trundle way before even a little bit of his rework. I've always been a big fan. I think Trundle's been a better champion than most people realize. And with the just new appreciation that we've seen Trundle become with his new support role a little bit, it's actually way more fun than I ever thought it would be, and it's also way more rewarding. Like I said, you have to sit back on the early game a little bit. There's not a lot of impact there. It's once you hit level 6, and a few other things too. Like one big thing, if you're Trundle and you have any jungler, have them come gank your lane. Ganks are so easy having a pillar. The pillar just cuts off people from escaping or will instantly burn their flashes, and then you can turn around and do another engagement. So you'll be able to do actually a lot of work once you feel the mechanics out. Just don't go too ham early, but luckily you do have that sustain from his passive. So I'm going to be playing a lot of Trundle support in the future. I think it's fantastic and way stronger than a lot of people realize. I just hope Riot doesn't change it because it's awesome. I hope this building guide helps you out in future matches. Good luck on the fields of justice, and I'll see all of you in the next build video.